Casey Weldon, winner of the 1991 Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award and first runner-up in the 1991 Heisman voting, currently with the Philadelphia Eagles. Brad Johnson holds the Florida State single-season record for passing percentage, hitting 67% of his passes in 1990, currently with the Minnesota Vikings. Both were seniors at Florida State and drafted to the NFL in the same season. Both learned and improved their quarterback fundamentals at Florida State from quarterback coach Mark Richt. Richt, a former University of Miami quarterback, became the quarterback coach at FSU in 1985, and his quarterbacks have guided the Seminoles to 6 straight top 4 finishes since 1987.
Hi, I'm Mark Richt, quarterbacks coach at Florida State University. I'm here with Casey Weldon and Brad Johnson. And the purpose of this video is to teach the young quarterback and their coaches basic fundamentals of quarterback play.
In this video, we teach you the basic fundamentals of throwing the football as well as drop-back techniques. We'll also emphasize the importance of ball handling, fakes, and play-action passing.
We hope this video will be what you're looking for, and if you just take the fundamentals and use them, you'll definitely become a better quarterback.
In the summer camps we have at Florida State, I've seen many quarterbacks. No two have the same style or ability. Some do very well at a young age without good technique simply because they're bigger and stronger than the other kids their age. But as they move on to higher levels of competition, they fall by the wayside because their techniques do not allow them to keep up. We want to help you develop your passing skills to the fullest by teaching you to use your entire body and eliminating as much wasted motion as possible. By mastering these skills, you will become a much stronger and more accurate passer with less strain on your arm. There are 3 components that are crucial to throwing the football. They are power, accuracy, and release. You must have all 3 to be effective. Before I start with these components, let's talk about the grip.
At Florida State, we feel like the grip is a very personalized thing. There's guys that have different size hands, and therefore they'll have a slightly different grip. But the thing that we're looking for is that he has control of the football and that his hand is as far back on the football as he can comfortably and still have control of it. The reason why we like the hand a little bit further back on the ball is when he throws the ball in a wet weather situation, he has enough surface area on behind the ball that he'll be able to push it, and if he has it on the side, it tends to slide off. So we'd like him to get his fingers back on the ball as far as he can comfortably. I like to put my pinky in the midsection of the lace. My next finger will be right on the very top of the lace, and the other 2 will be back behind the laces. We also like to have a certain amount of space in between the ball and the palm of the hand. And the reason for that is to have a little bit more fingertip control of the football. If you look at a basketball player dribbling a basketball, he never really palms the ball. The palm doesn't hit it. The fingertips hit the ball, and that's what he controls it with. And that's the same type of thing we're looking for, fingertip control, fingers back, and in a position, don't hold it so tight that you're going to fatigue your arm, but you got to have a good, nice, firm grip on it. The first component of throwing the football is power. When people think in terms of power, they usually think of an arm strength of a guy, and that's important, a big, strong arm, but really the majority of the power is generated from the rest of the body, and the arm just gives a finishing touch. So first thing we want to do is get you in a position to be able to uncoil and generate the power you need to throw the ball. We call it a power position at Florida State. So what we're looking for is the feet about shoulder width apart, maybe slightly wider, but where he feels like he has good balance. He wants to be able to get his knees bent to where his knees and his toes are on the same vertical plane. So if you were to drive a stake down from the skies, you'd want that stake to go through the knee and finish right at the toes. So you have a slight bend in that part. Now he wants to have a flat back, and he wants to have a slight bend to where his armpits now align with his knees and his toes, okay? As far as his left foot or his lead foot, he's a right-handed passer. We like it to be slightly open, so now he can see what's going on to his left in his stance. The next thing we want to make sure when he's in that stance is that the mental weight is on his right foot. We call it loading up the right foot, loading the weight on the right foot, because that's where the power is going to begin, and he wants to transfer that weight from his right foot to the front end of his body. So it starts in the back of the right foot and it finishes at the fingertip when he comes on through. Once you get in that power position that we're looking for, we want to begin the transferring of the weight through the rest of the body, and we call that a drive step. Once again, the weight is loaded on the right foot, and we want to begin to transfer the weight forward towards the target that we're going to. So what we want Brad to do here is begin by taking that first step, that drive step, and he'll slightly open his foot, he'll step directly to his target, and as he's taking that step, he will go ahead and get the ball in a cocked position. So it's step and cock at the same time. One of the problems that people have with the drive step is they tend to step too far to the left off the target, which opens their hips too soon, and it loses all the power from the waist down. That's one thing that we try not to do, is open the hips too soon. Good. Now the other problem that people have sometimes is they will step to the right of their target, and what it'll do is it'll cause them to throw across their body, and it'll block them from following through properly. Thus it'll cut down the power that they're going to be able to generate. So what we're looking for again, drive step directly toward your target or your focal point. Step and follow through to the target. Everything is going in one continuous motion right at your target, right in a straight line. At the beginning of the drive step, we'll start to uncoil the body. That's what we're looking to do. We're in a power position, all coiled, all that energy stored. Now we want to uncoil it in one continuous motion. So as he takes his step, his knees, his hips, and his torso will begin to rotate, and the left elbow will lead him as he turns his torso. Once you've taken your drive step and you've begun to uncoil your body, the finishing touch is the arm, and that's what we talked about before. And the most important thing about your arm coming through is that your arm is fully extended as it gets to the release point. So as he begins his rotation of his body, his elbow should rise up above the shoulder level, and as he follows through, the hand will be extended, and that will give him the leverage that he needs and generate the power that we're looking for. So give him a shot of that. One of the problems people have, and I see it all the time, is a quarterback tends to leave his elbow below his shoulder level. And all that does is force him to have a shot put action. And the best example I can use of that is if you ever get in a towel fight with a buddy, and one guy's got a long towel, and the other guy's got half the towel, you know, who's going to win? Who's going to be able to snap it the hardest? The guy with the longest towel. So you throwing the ball with your elbow below your shoulder is just like snapping a towel that's only half as long as the other fellas.
At the tail end of his full arm extension, he'll snap his wrist and let his hand follow through to his opposite hip.
Let's talk about the stance and how it relates to being an accurate passer. Everything's the same. He's in the same power position as he was when we talked about power. Now, the only thing we want to emphasize is that he's got his lead shoulder pointed directly at the target that he's going to be throwing to. The next thing we talk about is his eyes. It's very important to see what you're throwing at and focus on a focal point smaller than a large target. In other words, he's got a body down there, and instead of just throwing it down there to Casey, we try to pick out a spot somewhere on the body, and a lot of times the partner will go ahead and give him a target and something he can focus on, so when he steps and follows through, he's looking, he's stepping to it, and he's following through the target. The next thing that we talk about in regards to accuracy is the step or the stride. We want to make sure that the step is directly towards the target. A lot of people have trouble stepping to the right or the left of the target, and they get in trouble. But first of all, I want Brad to show us a good step towards the target and following through to him. well, we run into the most problems is when the quarterback decides that he's going to step off the center line. In other words, if he steps too far to the right of the target, it forces him to throw across his body. He's got half his momentum moving in this direction and the other half moving to the left, and it's very difficult to zero in on the target. What we'd like for him to do, again, is step 2 and follow through. We'll show an example of how it hurts your accuracy to step off the center line, and you'll see again how it blocks your power from following through. You can see it's very difficult for him to follow through because he's here and it ends up blocking his power from following all the way through. You want your belly button to face your target when you're finished with your throw. The next thing that people have trouble with is to step too far to the left of the center. Too far to the left of the center does 2 things. We talked about it in regards to power, that it opens up the hips too quick and you lose the power, but it also brings your body working too far to the left, and then your upper body has to compensate by throwing back to the right. Now you might be thinking, now who in his right mind is going to stand there throwing to a target and stepping off the center line? Well, as we'll see later when we get into our drop techniques, that when you're actually dropping back and throwing to your right or left, people tend to open too far or don't open enough to their targets, and it'll become more evident when we get into our drop section. The stride length, if you overstride or you understride, it tends to force your shoulders in an upward motion. Take a long stride, Bull. Sometimes when you take a long stride, automatically the shoulders rock back like that. Quarterbacks and coaches, when you see a man step and his shoulders go in the air, then you're looking for trouble because immediately he's going to have to rock forward to compensate for it being up. What we want the shoulders to do is rotate parallel to the ground in this motion. The spine is the axis, and we want the shoulders to rotate in this way. That'll keep the ball from going up or down. But once the shoulders do this, the ball tends to rise or it tends to be thrown in the dirt because on the first step you went too far and it caused the shoulder to shoot up. The only time I really like to see that lead shoulder rock and point upward is when you're throwing the deep ball, and that's fine. The shoulder will rock slightly, but you're still rotating on your spine as an axis, and you'll still have the rotation in this manner. You're not rocking back and forth like this. This is what you don't want to see. You do want to see that type of action right there. Good.
As the arm extends and the ball is released, your index finger should be the last thing that leaves the ball, and your palm should be pointing towards your target as it falls through to your opposite pocket.
The last component that we want to talk about is the release. We've already talked about power. I mean, you might be able to throw it 80 yards now, and that's super. We talked about accuracy. You might be able to throw it 80 yards and hit a dime. That's fine too, but if you can't release the ball quickly enough, you're not going to be able to throw timing patterns, and you're probably going to take a sack because you're taking too long to get rid of the football. You'll probably be great out in the backyard, but when you get in the ball game, you're going to have trouble competing. So the overriding factor in the release is that we want to have the least amount of wasted motion as possible. I like to define the release time as the time it takes the ball to leave your hand from a set position. Let's say Casey's in a set position. He's cocked and ready to go, and now his brain says throw the football. It's the time it takes for him to be from a set position to the ball actually leave his hand. And the things that usually get you in trouble is, first of all, your stance. Let's say he's back in the pocket. You see a lot of guys like to get their legs real stiff, real straight, up and down. Well, the first thing he has to do before he throws the ball is pop his knees back down to get into a throwing position. So here he is in a set position with his knees straight. The brain says throw. Now he's got to pop down to a throwing position. That takes time. That's what we're trying to eliminate. So already have your knees bent, already be in that power position ready to go, and you won't have that problem. The next problem I have sometimes is if a player will seat the ball too low. He'll carry the ball too low as he's dropping back. As soon as it's time to throw, the first thing he has to do is what? He's got to put it in a cocked position. Okay. The ball has to travel from here all the way up to here before he's ready to throw. That takes too much time. Now, a lot of guys will seat the ball beautifully. Casey likes to seat the ball right about here. That's comfortable, and that's good. But if they drop the ball and dip it in a semicircle, and before they get all the way up to a cocked position, that takes a lot of time. The time it travels from here, wheel around and up there, is a lot different than going from here right to a cocked position. So we like to talk about going up and out with the football, make that semicircle, make it as short as you can, not a big roundhouse action. Okay, let's give them an example of a good one first. We want to have it cocked and up and out with the football. Okay, now give them an example of what it might look like if you really wheel it around. Okay. His hand didn't move any quicker from here to here than it did from here to here. The only difference was he traveled a lot more distance than he did right here. So that was a quicker deal, and that's what we're looking for. Less wasted motion. I'm going to have Casey to try to illustrate a point. I want him to move his hand the same speed, but go ahead and do one in a short compact motion and do the second one in an elongated wind-up motion. Same hand speed, less distance. I think you'll see that the compact motion will give you a quicker release. First, we want to see the compact motion. Okay. Now we want to see a wind-up, same hand speed, only it should take longer because the ball travels a farther distance.
This is a drill we like to use to help the quarterback's release. We get him set up in a cocked position, and he gets used to throwing the football without winding up.
The thing that we're looking for in a stance at the center for the quarterback center exchange is to be as close as possible to your throwing stance. In other words, when you take the snap, I want you to be at the same body level on the snap as you're dropping back and when you plant. I don't want you being way low, popping up and going back. I don't want you way high and have to pop down and go. I want you in the good throwing position like we talked before, with the toes, knees, armpits in the same vertical plane with the flat back. The only thing that will change is you might adjust your foot in a little bit. Your lead foot will square up. Your hands will now just come down and your head will go forward. Okay, that's real good right there.
In the passing game, like you said, Coach, it is very important how you receive the ball. So quarterbacks, it's your responsibility to work with your center on exactly how you want to receive the ball. So when you put your throwing hand under here, right hand or left hand, your throwing hand is against the center's rear. You want to work with him and just snap the ball, snap it up slow, Rock, how you want to receive the ball. Okay, now look, say I got the ball like this. I got the ball like this. That's not how I want it. I want it like this. So roll it in your hand. This is how you want it. This is how I throw the ball. So I want it like this. So what I'm going to do is put it up underneath here to the center. He's going to reach back to a snapping position, grab the ball, now take it back down. Now you're going to do it again. Set height. Boom. I got it just like I want it. That's how I want to throw it. Now if I get it too much like this, I'm going to roll it back. Hand it back to the center and work with it. It's your job to work in practice as much time as it takes, because it's very important in the passing game to have the laces how you want to throw it to make that quick pass that you need sometimes.
Another important part on the exchange is that he has a firm amount of pressure on the rear end of the center. He's got to know where he is so he can stick it on him. And the QB cannot move his hand away from that center's rear end until the ball hits the hand and he's ready to go. The next thing I like to talk about is that if he gets too tight in there and the elbows are bent too far, all right, he's got to stand back up in a throwing position before he can drop. And if he gets too far away, a lot of guys want to have their elbows straight and rigid. Well, there's no way he'll have any shock absorption to be able to take a bad snap or be able to move with the center. He wants to have a slight bend to where he can move with the center any way he goes and absorb the football. The next thing I want to talk about is once he receives the football, I want him to seat the ball immediately to the point in which he's going to operate. In other words, if he's going to toss the sweep, I want him to seat the ball to his belly button. If he's going to drop back and throw the football, I want him to seat the ball to the position we talked before, just slightly on the backside of the chin.
I'm going to show you how to seat the ball on a toss sweep. Say, hey. Now, you want to bring it in because you got guards full, and you want to seat the ball immediately to your stomach on the running game. Then you can go wherever from there to hand the ball off or pitch the sweep. Now, for the passing game, you want to bring it immediately to your comfortable spot when you drop back. Say, hey. The 3, 5, and 7-step drop, every one of them has a point in which the foot needs to land. When the offensive line is setting their protections, they have a point where they know that quarterback's going to be. For a 3-step drop, they know the quarterback's going to be 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. On a 5-step drop, they know he's going to be approximately 7.5 to 8 yards from the line of scrimmage. And on a 7-step drop, they know he's going to be the far line, which is 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. So the line knows where he's going to be, and it's important for the quarterback to get to that spot when he's supposed to get there. The other important part, besides the protection, is the timing of a pattern. For example, if we throw a 3-step route and we're planting the foot and throwing it on rhythm, then he's got to be able to plant the foot on time and throw the ball on time, so when the receiver comes out of his break, the ball will be on the way. So those are the things we try to accomplish in the drop, and it's very crucial to be a stickler on that. A lot of form, you can let one guy have his own style and things like that, but when it comes to the drop back game, you need everybody doing it as close to exactly the same as possible.
The 3-step drop is used for our quick timing patterns. For example, the slant, the quick out, and the quick takeoffs. It will be approximately 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and take 1.2 seconds. The first step is the same in all 3 drops, whether you're throwing to your right or left, and it's the most crucial. If your first step is correct, then you're on your way to a good drop. If it's incorrect, you will have difficulty getting to your proper depth and location in your pocket. I like to call the first step a drive step, and it accomplishes 3 things. It generates power, it gets you depth from the line of scrimmage, and it gives you the proper direction. A right-handed quarterback will mentally have his weight on the inside of his left foot. As he takes a snap, he will push or drive his right foot back deep to the center line. His weight will be shifted away from the line of scrimmage, and as he does this, he will seat the ball with both hands just to the backside of his chin. His shoulders will be parallel to slightly open from the center line so he can easily see to his left. He should not turn his back to the line of scrimmage. For a 3-step drop, the 2nd and 3rd steps are used to gather and shift the weight towards the target. The 2nd step is a crossover step, and the 3rd is a combination of a plant and a drive step. The quarterback should plant and then drive towards his target. There is no hitch step or crow hop in a timing pattern. If you do, what you'll find out is that your receiver has run himself out of bounds. It's 1, 2, 3, fire. The 5-step drop will be approximately 7 to 7.5 yards deep and take 1.5 seconds. The 5-step drop is sometimes used with a timing pattern. The first step is the same as a 3-step drop. Drive step, head downfield, shoulders slightly open, ball seated with 2 hands, and the body shifted away from the line of scrimmage. The 2nd and 3rd steps are now drive steps right down the center line. Your 4th and 5th steps are now used to get you back under control so you can shift your weight toward your target. The 5th step is very similar to the 3rd step of a 3-step drop. You will plant and then drive to your target. If you're throwing to a hot receiver in a blitz situation, you won't even have time to drive step to your target. If you're not throwing a timing pattern, then you can take a hitch step before you step toward your target. An example of that could be a 10-yard flag route. The 7-step drop should be approximately 10 yards deep and take 1.8 to 2.0 seconds. The 7-step drop is usually used for intermediate routes. So after the 7th step is planted, a quick hitch step is in order. The same techniques are used in this drop as the 3 and 5 step. The first 5 steps are drive steps, and the last 2 are for shifting of the weight, planting, and taking an immediate hitch step. The QB's eye should be looking downfield or away from his target area during the first 5 steps. On his 7th step, he should be looking up his number 1 target. I use 3 drills in my 10 minutes of individual period every day in practice. They are form throw, drops, and angle throw.
The first thing we like to do in the day at practice, once we've gone through our flexibility, is to go ahead and get 10 yards apart and form throw to a partner. Again, the partner's going to give a focus point with his hands. The man will get himself set as if he was set in the pocket to take a drive step and fall through to his target. And we'll do that for about 5 minutes till their arms are loose. The object here is not to see how far you can throw it or how hard you can throw it. It's just concentrating on the fundamentals that we've talked over.
During our drop drill, we concentrate strictly on our footwork. I use the sideline as a line of scrimmage and the yard lines as the center line for the quarterback. The first mark painted on the center line designates 5 yards for a 3-step drop. The second mark on the center line designates 7.5 yards for a 5-step drop. And the third mark on the center line designates 10 yards for a 7-step drop. By using these markings, I can see if the quarterbacks are driving deep enough and if they're staying on the center line. I have them all work together and usually give them 2 3-step drops to the right and 2 3-step drops to the left. We'll repeat the same process with the 5-step drop, giving them 2 to the right and then 2 to the left. Make sure they keep their head and eyes downfield as they're dropping back. When they plant, their eyes should be focused toward their target. We'll finish off with a couple 7-step drops, 1 to the right and 1 to the left.
As a quarterback, you can never do too many drops. The more you do, the better you're going to get. You're going to get to your point more often, hit the same spot, which gives the offensive line a better spot to protect. You're going to get there quicker, and when you get there quicker, you make better decisions as a quarterback.
When doing the angle throw, we combine the form throw and the drop drill. We'll put Brad and Casey on opposite hashes 5 yards apart. Brad will start the drill by dropping 3 steps and throwing to his left to Casey. Brad will then become the receiver as Casey throws the ball in like fashion. Brad will then move back 5 yards to simulate the 5-step drop without a hitch step. This is how we practice the 10-yard out route without the receivers being there. I also have them throw a 5-step drop with a hitch step to simulate a 10-yard hook. Make sure they plant and drive to their targets. Brad will move back yet another 5 yards to simulate the 7-step drop. This is as close as we come to throwing the 16-yard square without the receiver being there. When they finish throwing to their left, they then switch hashes and repeat the drill, only now throwing to the right. The hash marks now provide you with the center line so you can keep an eye on the direction of their drops. And the yard markers will provide a guide to check their depths. I especially like this drill because it allows us to have a dress rehearsal of all of our drops without the receivers being there. It's very frustrating for the receivers to run routes when the quarterbacks are not ready to perform. What this drill does is it gets us ready to throw precise routes with the receivers without wasting their time. It also gives the quarterback the confidence to drop back in the pocket without having to consciously think about it. When putting together a running game, it's important to plan your play-action passes right along with it. Nothing puts more pressure on a defense than when we toss the sweep out of the I formation to the right, the quarterback will be in his normal stance under center. As he takes the snap, he will seat the ball to his belly and reverse pivot to the tailback. He will then toss the ball from his belly button to the ball carrier's belly button. His first step should gain depth and land just to the right of the center line. On the second step, after the ball is tossed, the hands should immediately go to the left hip, hiding them from the backside of the defense. The right foot will begin to break contain, carrying out a naked bootleg fake to the line of scrimmage. The only defender we don't account for in our blocking scheme is the weak side contained player. If he tries to run the back down from behind, we know it's time to fake the sweep and run the naked bootleg. On the naked, we will go through the exact same footwork as the sweep, except when we extend our arms to the back, we will not pitch the ball. Instead, we'll hide the ball on our hip and break contain, thinking run first and pass second. Here's an example of Brad tossing the sweep to his left and also running the naked. When we run the sprint draw, the companion play is a sprint draw pass where we set up in the guard tackle gap in the pocket. When we run the sprint draw to the right, the quarterback will take the snap, seat the ball, and drive step to the mesh point with the back. They should mesh at about 5 yards deep in the B gap. By his second step, he should begin to reach the ball to the belly button of the back. On the third step, he will firmly stick the ball in the belly of the back. He will then ride and hide his hands from the defense and carry out his fake for a 7-step drop. When we see that the linebackers are beginning to overplay the run, it's time for our sprint draw pass. The quarterback's technique is the same, except now he will keep the ball and hide it until he plants his 7th step. Then he will hitch up in the pocket and fire. When working to the left, everything is the same, except on the 7th step, he has to wheel around to plant before he throws the football. We also run a weak side sprint draw action, but we complement it with a naked instead of a pocket pass. It's one of our most deceptive fakes. On the handoff, we still reach to the back with 2 hands, but we only hide the back hand and let the lead hand release.
Ball handling is a very important part of the game, as you know. As a quarterback, sometimes we get lazy not wanting to carry out our fakes all the way, but after coming to Florida State, realizing what faking can do, you can fake so many people out on the defense and help your running backs. And as a quarterback, your job is to put the team in the end zone. So really carry out your fakes. It'll help your game. It'll set up the passing game, and you'll become a better quarterback, and your team's going to put the ball in the end zone a lot more.
We also run a screen off of our sprint draw. The key is to drop exactly the same as a 7-step sprint draw pass. When you plant, act as if you're going to throw the ball downfield. Then retreat full speed and dump the ball off to the back with a high release. The intensity of the rush will determine how long you can hold your point before you have to retreat.
When throwing the ball, I like to think of what's called the beef technique. Beef technique is B stands for balance, feet shoulder width apart, E for eyes on my target, the other E for a high elbow with a high release, and the F for the follow through. Balance, eyes, elbow, follow through. People talk about having a strong arm, what it takes to have a strong arm. A lot of people think you got to get in the weight room and pump it up, but it's not. When you have a strong arm, that's not what it's all about. Having a strong arm, it starts with the feet, having powers in the legs, and having torque. Right here. Strong arm starts with your legs, up through your body, all the way to your fingertips. Remember, beef technique. Balance, eyes, elbow, follow through.
We want to thank you for working with us. We enjoyed having you. You've seen the techniques, and now it's up to you.
These are the same techniques Brad and I use every day in practice in the NFL. These skills take time and practice. There's no substitute for hard work.
Good luck in your seasons, and who knows, you might end up in the NFL with these guys.